Okay, so, you know, I cut out the pieces according to the pattern. And then what I do, first of all, to make it a little easier, before I even sew the pieces together, I iron down the little seams on this piece and this piece, and I actually sew them down beforehand because I found that when you sew them after you have the curve sewn on the mouthpiece, that it's a little harder. It's a lot easier to do it this way. And so I just sew down those 4 pieces. 2, or actually 3 of them. There's the 4th one. So I have my 4 pieces sewn, and then I'm going to put together the face curve. So I have my face curve sewn right there. And then now I'm going to put together the mouth curve and sew that as soon as I figure out how to get the right sides together. There we go. So I sew together my mouth curves. So the next step, let me trim all of this fuzzy stuff off the threads. So the next step, and this is where I deviate from the pattern. I fold it, the mouthpiece right side out, and then I pin the mouthpiece inside the face piece. So I know in the pattern it says to sew the cheek part, to sew this part on right now, and then there's the whole thing about the dotted line. Well, that was confusing as all get out. So I found that if I take and put my mouthpiece inside the face piece and I pin it where the top seam and the bottom are, so that I know that the fronts will line up. Where to put my pins? There's my pins. So I'm just going to pin right here along this edge of the front, and then the other side. So I do it both of the parts on the top. Then I'm going to go down here on the bottom and do the same thing and line up the edges on the bottom for the front and the back, and do a pin there on each side. Now I'm going to take my my cheek pieces, and so I have, this is one side, so I'm going to take the cheek piece and I'm going to lift up the mouth, lay down the cheek piece so that it matches up with the edge of the face. So when I did it using the dotted line, I couldn't get it to always match up. I don't know what happened. I don't know what about when I cut. So I just lay it under there so that it matches up with the front, and then I put up 2 pins here. That way it keeps it in place. So now I have it's pinned together, the mouthpiece, the cheek piece, and the face piece. So I have all 3 of those pinned together. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side, taking the the cheek piece, putting it right side down on top of the face piece. And I'm gonna go ahead and line it up, and then just flip the mouthpiece over so that everything is all lined up. And then I pin it there. Make sure I stay lined up, and then pin it on this side. So now I have the inside with the mouth and the cheek pinned to the front of the mask. And now I just stitch all the way around. This is a lot easier than stitching the cheek to the mouth and then putting it in there and sewing all the way around. And plus I know that it's going to fit with the face part, because one of the problems that I ran into is when I followed the pattern, sometimes it didn't fit in the face. So now I just take out all of the pins. Now some people do not like sewing over their pins. I don't care. So it depends on you and how you feel about it on your machine. Now I'm going to just kind of snip corners so that they fold a little flatter. Just cut them out at a diagonal, and then turn it right side out. And I use a pencil to get all of my corners nice and tight. Push out my corners. Okay. I probably should have trimmed my threads. I'm going to have some random threads in there. Okay. And then get this set of corners. Okay. And then I iron it from the inside. So I've ironed it nice and flat. And then a couple different ways you can do this. It all depends on how you want to do your elastic. So I've been using two 9-inch pieces of elastic because instead of having it worn on the ears, I like it to be worn on the back of the head. I feel that it gives a better fit. I found that when it was on the ears, not only did it irritate my ears, but it also was too loose, and I didn't feel that I got a good enough seal. So I'm going to fold it over about an inch or so, and I'm just going to sew right along this line right here. And do a little back stitch on the corners, give it a little extra security. Then the last part is the top stitching and putting in the elastic. Like I said, I've done it a few different ways. I've tried the ear loops, didn't like those, but some people might, especially if they don't want it messing up their hair. Me nowadays, I'm just wearing it in a ponytail again because who cares? So I'm going to get my two 9-inch pieces of elastic. Now if you were going around the ears, I would say you could do, this is a 7-inch piece, you could make a loop so that it's about the size of a hair rubber band. So you would just feed it through the end and then feed it through that side and then sew the loop. And then just hide it inside the fold. Or I've also done an 18-inch piece and fed it through one end, out the other, across and the other end. So that's another way to do it, but I found that the easiest way, so I'm just going to take, and I'll even pin it. Normally I don't pin, I actually hate pins. So I'm going to do one side right there, then it's going to go across to the opposite on the same, so like I did one side on the top and then go across to the top as well. And I put that in there. Like I said, I kind of do this as I'm sewing along because I'm not a fan of using pins. And then I'll do this, so I have it going across from top to top. Then I do the same on the bottom. Okay, I'm just putting the pin in there. And go across. Make sure my elastic is straight. Put it in there. And then the very last step is I top stitch all the way around. So I just sew right along the edge all the way around, making sure I catch the elastic on the way. I'm going to remove my first pin because it's in my way. And there you go. All I have to do is trim the threads and it's ready to go.